All right, welcome back. I did an unboxing of this CJRB Pyrite in another video, and I'm excited to just spend a little time with it and do a little bit of a review. I'll do a short comparison against the Civivi Elementum button lock. I have that here as well, which is a really close comparable. I think they're both good knives, but I think this CJRB is better. So if that was what you were curious about, then I just saved you maybe 20 minutes. This one, limited deployment model for one, which I take issue with. Just don't think it quite, this button probably needs some like grease in it or something like that. Anyways, you're already starting seeing one main reason why. But very comparable knives. Let's really stay focused here though on this, because this to me is the best value knife of the year. I'll break it down on why I think that. So let's get this guy out of here. And I'm just going to talk about this one to start. This is available in G10 and in blackened stainless steel. This is a stainless steel handle here. You'll see it does have thumb studs, and then it has a button lock, so you can deploy this very easily with a wheel out. You can deploy it with the button lock very easily. It's really good, very fidgety. You can use your fingernail to deploy it with a thumb flick. You can use your tip of your thumb to deploy it with a thumb flick with no problem. And it's really good for the reverse or spidey flick as well. So the deployment is top notch, very fidgety and fun, and does a good job. The blade steel's good. It's nothing to write home about. That's probably one of the things that I'd say is, not, but for the price, it's very appropriate. It's this, the AR, what is it called? Is it RPM 9? I can't even see it right now, but I think it's RPM 9. So kind of a comparable to like a, probably a little better than like an AUS 8 or something, but in that kind of ballpark, maybe like a VG10 or something along those lines. This pocket clip is good. It has good qualities to it, like the inset screws. So from like a pocket perspective, this is not too tall when you're getting it on your hand. It doesn't give you a hot spot, but it's tall enough to get into the pocket without problem. And one of the things I look at is like, is this like too ridiculously hard and or too weak? So it'll just slide in and out of the pants. Very good pocket clip. The one thing I would ask for, it looks like it is reversible, but if it could be inset into the handle so that that doesn't have even that one last little bit of catch potentially from the actual bottom of the clip there, I think that would be really nice. One of the things that sort of stands out to me on this knife is on the lower end, like Demko, which is a 3 times more expensive knife. You have this back spacer that's kind of cheapo looking versus the more expensive Demkos. You get the standoffs, and you get basically the same standoffs here on the Pyrite. So, this is a $315 MSRP versus like a $66 MSRP. You get these for $49 on most websites right now. I don't know if it'll stay like that, but it's what it is right now. So grab them if you're concerned that it might not. This is of course titanium versus stainless and stuff, but effectively, like, maybe this doesn't, effectively, you're not going to have a huge difference for most people, most use cases. Like this is going to perform as well as, a titanium handle for most people. The fit and finish is phenomenal. It's not the best. Like I do feel like it doesn't feel like a $500 knife. I'll say that. Like you compare that to even a $425 Hinderer, and this thing feels more robust and significant. You compare it to a, we'll just bring the Demko back out there, $315 Demko. This does feel like a nicer knife, but it doesn't feel like a 7 times nicer knife. Compare it to the Devo Stout. Honestly, this is heavier, but it's not that much, like, I don't want to say the word nicer. Yeah, the fit and finish isn't better. It's basically the same fit and finish. There's just more knife there, would be like the best way I could put it. These are milled out stainless steel scales, or call it the handle. And it's really nicely done. You can see in there they leave in the reinforcement nicely. They've taken out a huge amount of steel. It still leaves the knife a little bit on the heavier side, but you can get the G10 if that's really what's important to you. Let's go ahead and just pull out the scale here. And it's coming in at 3.74 ounces. Versus like the Evo Stout, I think is like a 4-ounce knife. And a Demko is like a 3.5-ounce knife. And if you get the Demko tie, you get into the 4.3 ounces. So the Civivi that I just showed you, probably more like 3.15 ounces. Spyderco Para 3.3 ounces, right? So, get this in a G10 and you're probably really similar to a Spyderco Para 3. One other one I'll pull out will be just like a QSP Penguin, because price-wise, that's like a $32, $33 knife or something like that. So these are not far off category-wise, and if you got that in G10, they'd probably be the same weight. So that's, a really good comparable. This is a good one to compare on size, actually, so let's leave it out here for a second, because this is a pretty popular knife you may have. And the QSP Penguin, especially if you're shopping for that knife, this would have been one of the ones that probably the same reviewers told you was a good knife. So size-wise, super similar, very, very similar. Obviously, using a sheep's foot blade. I think this is a much nicer looking knife, personally. This is the biggest drawback of the Penguin to me, is it's not a very nice looking knife. It's just very utilitarian, but that's great for a lot of people. This is both. Like, this is a knife where you look good. In fact, the only thing on the fit and finish that doesn't seem great on mine, I don't know if I can wipe it off or something, but I have this like slight stain here, so I'll just point that out. Let me see if I have something. I'll give it a try, but I'm pretty sure I tried to wipe it off and it didn't come off. Maybe I can put some rubbing compound on there and get it off. Maybe I'll even try that on this video today. What else? The button is very responsive. One of the things I'm not liking about this one, and again, I may just need to throw some lube in there or something, but man, this thing is not intuitive. It's very hard to press. This takes about 2/3 or half of the effort to press. And you don't have to like push it down too far. Let me see if I can show you how far you have to push it down before the knife drops. Right, so it's not a huge amount of travel you need for the knife to drop. And I think where you push it to may be flush with the handle, which I think is a really good thing. It might be just past flush with the handle, which is about perfect. Because if it's just past flush, you're pretty unlikely to do it by mistake, but you don't have to also push it like way, way in there, which would be really annoying if you had to like really dig your finger into there. That'd make it less consistent for deployment. So I am just daily kind of thinking about this knife. It reminds me a lot of the Elementum. That's why I was comparing it to the Elementum button lock, but it actually reminds me more of the actual original Elementum, which I think is in some ways a better knife than this new button lock. In some ways the button lock I like more because of the blade handle size. But let me pull out an Elementum to compare, because I think right now this particular Elementum, or last I checked, was on sale for $59. And you can get an Elementum with D2 blade steel, which would be very comparable for the exact same price as this Pyrite. So that's really like probably the perfect comparable. The fit and finish wise and everything, it's super comparable. Blade length is very comparable. This one happens to be a Tanto blade, so please take that with a grain of salt, but I like the length of this handle more. But your actual knife blade length is, I'm going to say, pretty similar here. Let's take a look and confirm. A tad bit longer on the Pyrite, so I don't know if the Tanto is shorter or not than the drop point on the Civivi, but the jimping, there's just a lot of things that I see as being very similar on these knives. Now this is an S35VN for $59, but let's kind of ignore that element of it and focus on the $50 Civivi Elementum that comes with D2, because I think that's like the real direct competitor to this. What else? The only like really thing I just flat out don't like that much is the thumb stud is like a little pokey. It's fine, but it's not my favorite thumb stud I've ever felt. Just the tip of it kind of is a little pokey at the end. It's kind of Chris Reevish. Whereas if you look at the thumb stud here on the Demko, the top of it's flat, which I totally prefer. Maybe you get a little better purchase on this, but it's at a cost of discomfort that to me is not worth it. You know what actually reminds me of? Yeah, it might be even the same freaking thumb stud. The Ontario Rat 2. In fact, Ontario Rat 2 is even a little less pokey than it, but also one that I kind of think of being, it's not that bad. By comparison to this, it's not bad. It's actually rounder. So this one you get good purchase, but it just feels like, you know, you don't want to push your thumb is shaped this way. So if you think about what you'd want your thumb to come in contact with, it wouldn't be something that's also shaped this way, right? Like the more pokey something is, the less comfort you're going to have. You want something that you ideally would, you know, would be inset. In a perfect world, obviously that's not going to really be the case for a thumb stud on a knife, but that's probably one of the few things I don't like about it from like an ergo perspective, if you want to call that ergonomics. Aside from that, perfect carry length where you get an exact 4-finger carry. I got a 4-inch wide hand here that just gets in there, and you got a choke up point that even makes it that much better. You know, the only thing I couldn't really speak to on this is how solid is that button lock? So I'd be curious to know if anyone's done any tests on that. Please feel free to comment. It looks like you get a pretty good lockup on it. It looks like it gets like maybe a 30%. See if we can actually see it a little bit here. That would be cool if we can get some eyes on it there. I mean, it looks like it's maybe even less than 30%. I can't quite tell. I think that part of the blade actually is carved out, which is interesting. I guess to fit it in there. So maybe we can look at this and get a sense of how much it's actually touching on there. Yeah, you can see that where it's gonna get a little bit of a wear point there on this side of it. So let's see if I can get some good light on it there for you. See that little like dot in there? So you're getting like maybe a 25%, maybe 30% lock up over the blade. So it's probably pretty similar to like a liner lock in terms of strength. I don't know though. I don't really know how that works by comparison. I guess it's probably better than a liner lock, because in a liner lock, you're pushing into it, whereas here you're pushing away from it, kind of like in the axis lock in a Bugout. You know, this is happening in behind the blade. I don't know if that really makes a difference or not, but the axis lock, you know, basically goes over that bar. It's like that, but instead of going across the whole blade stock, you're getting like a 25 or 30% coverage. And this, you know, has to move out this way, whereas that has to move out that way. And I feel like that's more vulnerable to pressure, where somehow that could kind of pop off of there. But it's still very good. It seems like it's a solid lockup, but I don't know that it's, you're not talking about competing with like a triad lock from Demko or like a shark lock or something like that, right? So that's not, this nice greatest strength isn't like the lock power. And that's not the feel you get from this knife. This is a total EDC beauty that makes it easy. For $50, you're getting basically almost as fidgety as a Demko knife, and arguably, you know, versus a $150 Grivery version, a much nicer handle. This thing feels like glass. The closest thing I've felt to the Demko Timascus, actually. This thing feels awesome in hand. So, what else? So the pocket score, you know, how is it in the pocket? Great. It's a nice deep carry. I'm just gonna throw it in there right now one more time. Just goes in the pocket so easily, and It is a little loose on there. Like if you're doing handstands, it'd be questionable, but it's probably fine. But it's a really deep carry, and it goes right over the pocket. You know, this is really smooth, so that makes it that much easier, right? If you have texturing on the handle, which is why Demko does this like flat part right under the carry clip, that does also make it harder to go in and out of your pocket. So it's really good in and out of the pocket. I think it's a pretty knife. It's not like, you don't look at this and go like, wow, it's artwork, but it is classy and it is balanced looking. The handle to blade ratio and the, you know, overall weight, if you look at it, it's about a 3-inch, you know, cutting edge with about, what was it, a 3.75 weight or whatever it was. So, you know, you're pretty on ratio there. They say like 1 inch per ounce or whatever. I don't know who came up with that idea, but I don't know if it even holds true anymore, to be honest. It's just some idea that someone said at some point. Why the ounce and the inch are not arbitrary numbers, I couldn't tell you. That's actually something else entirely. I think of the Wii Vision R when I see this knife as a titanium, you know, kind of the next level up from Chinese type knife that's also fidgety and a very interesting competitor to this. I think the CJRB is more straightforward. This is definitely a better knife, like in terms of like quality and stuff, but not necessarily in terms of like intuitive use. The one thing I'll say about this button lock is it's like you have to really let go of it for the blade to stay where you're sending it. So it's not like, maybe part of it's just that I'm on video. If I like get up and I'm sitting down, so if I stand up and really, you know, put some effort into it, maybe I'll be more consistent, but it kind of bounces out of there. It's a light detent, and it feels like it bounces out of there a bit. So you really got to get that right when you're pulling it back in, you know, or treat it like it's any other normal knife, right? Like maybe I'm just trying to make it a Demko when it's not one. So what else? I talk a lot about feel in hand. Like I said, the feel in hand's good. The choke up, everything's good. I talk about feel in pocket, that's good. I talk about weight, that's good. It's definitely more on a blue jean carry for me than a, you know, a pant carry than a short carry, but it's not far off from a short carry. Like I could definitely carry this one in shorts versus some of the others that I have. I talk about value. It's #1 value knife I've seen of the year. You know, it's at the cost, of course, of Chinese labor, and there's some other elements there that you might argue are not as good on value. However, just straight up, if you take politics out of it and human welfare out of it, it's the best value knife I've seen this year, and it's not really close to me. Like I actually think this is I guess that is close with some knives, depending on your preferences and stuff. There's probably some Civivis and Penguins, you know, the Penguins I said, some QSPs that you could argue are similar on the value spectrum, but for like, yeah, I don't know, it's hard to consider blade steels and everything all in. I think this is all around the best value knife I've seen of the year, so that's, you know, a real considerable point. Blade steel, you know, that's not going to be my highest rating on this, but it's fine, and for the price, it's a good blade steel. You know, it's a solid blade steel for the price. The deployment is, you know, a 9 out of 10. If a Demko's a 10 out of 10, I'd give this like a 9. It's right up there. It's not quite as good on the thumb stud as the Wii Banter. I'll say that. Like this is a better, more confidence invoking, kind of easier to get to. Like I actually like this thumb stud better. This is a better thumb stud deployment than this knife. It's not that it's hugely far off from it, but this to me from a thumb stud perspective is like a 9 or a 10 out of 10. And although you can use this to deploy also, which makes this a better overall deployment knife to me than this knife, this is just a better thumb stud and a like better detent than this knife. So that's kind of interesting. The detent's not bad on this. It's like every time I feel it, I'm surprised that it's as hard as it is. Maybe part of it's that I'm always like button locking it out, so it feels like it has no detent. But you know, this is a it's kind of funny. I've got two. I don't know if I've ever had two Wii knives on the table at the same time. So CJRB, you're making history here. I'd pull out like a Demko. I'm sorry, I said Demko. Hogue is right now like way ahead of the Benchmade, I think. The Benchmade just went up from 144 on most websites, like 161 or 162. So this is now so far out of recommendable range for a Grivery handle S30V. MagnaCut, same shitty handle as the, you know, different shitty handle, but it's probably actually not as good as the Bugout on the handle, which says a lot, or says, you know, just how bad it is, but same locking mechanism. Instead of 162, you're at 127 right now on most websites. I got a feeling these are going to go up at some point. That is like right in there as like a competitor. You got MagnaCut in your, you know, for some people, the weight is much less. It's over an ounce less weight here versus this guy. So like that is one that kind of comes to mind. I don't have it right handy, or do I? I do have it right handy. Spyderco Para 3 lightweight would be like a, you know, definite contender. Ooh, that was a little sketchy. For this is $115 on most websites, or last I checked at least. Similar cutting edge weight is a bit lighter here because of that. Is that pocket carry clip? I actually really like this carry clip. But man, the handle on this is way nicer, and these blades, they have their trade-offs. I don't know. One of the things I like about this lightweight versus the standard Para 3 is it's more knocked down in the I don't know if you call that the fuller. I guess if it's a circle, is it still called a fuller? I don't know. Man, this one feels so good compared to my regular, more expensive G10 one, where it's like not knocked down as much in there. That is just a very uncomfortable, like I loathe every time I pull this out. I'm like, oh God, I gotta put my finger into that thing. I'm gonna see some dead skin or fingernail hung up on there. Might get rid of that knife actually. Just keep this around in my DLT exclusive Para 3 with G10. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Maybe I'll work a deal for you on that knife. They're like 161 new from the store. Mine's just been sitting here being compared to other knives. But anyways, what else do I have that's something in the $50 range? I do have a few here that would be a good comparable in that price range. A good one would be the Kaiser V3 Vigor. Is a really good comparable to that actually. Let's see if I can actually get it out of this box. I always have trouble opening this box. These are probably $50 right now. I got mine on sale for like $29.99 or something crazy like that, but that's actually a really comparable knife to this dollar-wise. And I just did a comparison of this one against the Elementum and a few other knives, and I think this one sort of won the all-around. You can see so many similarities here in terms of size. It's a very similar blade shape, although this one's got the swedge up here. I think that's the right term for that. G10 handle, which, you know, if you're looking at the G10 version, a little flatter here on the thumb stud, so I like that more. Liner lock versus the button lock, so that's like twice as good to me. But very similar, right? Lanyard holes, number of screws on the hardware. These are really similar knives in a lot of ways. And this is a great knife. Deploys super well, super well. Great knife. And so if this is $50 and that's $50, this is still a much better knife. This button lock is just awesome. The handle material better. I like this blade more. It's more straightforward. Yeah, this knife takes the cake over this guy. What was the other knife I had in that comparison? I had the Elementum, and I had the Gosh, I'm forgetting what the other knife was that was in that comparison. It wasn't the Wheat Banter. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I had one other knife in there. Maybe that comparison. Oh, I remember what that was. That was the. It's not the same price range. This is more like 30 or yeah, call it $30 or $35. But the Ontario Rat 2, so that's really similar. In fact, we should do the old, size comparisons here. Rat 1 and Rat 2. So much smaller than the Rat 1 and a little bigger than the Rat 2. Similar effective cutting edge and stuff, but slightly longer on the handle. A little more ergonomic for me, at least on this one. I'm trying to think of some other good $50 knives. You're seeing a lot more stuff come in like the $30 to $40 range. There are a ton of $50 knives out there, but aside from the Elementum, yeah, honestly, this isn't there. I haven't been making a lot of purchases in this price range lately, but there's a number of Civivis and stuff. You could probably get a Civivi Vagabond for around that price, which I think I have one here, but it's in a more premium version. So let me pull that out. Where's that guy? Civivi Vagabond. That's it. Oh, cool. This one's the Damascus one, and it's like carbon twill handle, so it's a bit more expensive, but I'm pretty sure they have this knife in like a G10, D2 or something like that, whatever, AUS-8, something along those lines. That's about the same price, and that's actually a really competitive knife to this for two reasons. Let's get this Vision R. This Vision R, by the way, is like a $279 knife. So the fact that they're even competitive speaks really highly, I think, to the Pyrite here. So why do I think that this is a more or like a good comparison knife? Because you have the thumb stud, but you also have a flipper in this case. So that flipper kind of, makes up for the button lock kind of. It's not as fidgety, but you have that sort of third deployment like you do with the button lock. And this is a really, really nice knife. Good lockup, like great feel in the hand. This is possibly my favorite Civivi. I don't think I ever placed that. There's some Lee knives I like more than it, but like for like a pure Civivi, this may be my favorite pure Civivi knife. Huh. Never realized it. There's a reason it keeps surviving. I've sold a lot of my Civivis. This thing is just so cool. I think the fit and finish they did on this is that of a $200 knife. Like that is the feel I get when I grab this knife, is like, oh, this could be a $279 Bugout carbon or something. And, this Damascus is not on the level of the S90V they put on that knife, but yeah, man, this is a great knife. And although this is much longer here, effective cutting edge is actually about the same. That CJRB is one that you should really look at if you're considering a $50 knife, a stocking stuffer. There are just a lot of use cases where you can say that this is a great buy. And if you're into G10, and I think they've got a couple other handle styles that are floating around. There's just a lot to love here. There really is. It's a very compelling knife. Like I don't know why I'm saying this. Everyone kind of knows that it keeps selling out, so it's not like I'm bringing any profound knowledge here to the community. I think everyone recognizes. I guess I'm just further validating what others have already realized, which is that this knife is just a really good all-arounder. I saw a post actually on Blade forums. Oh, that person talked about comparing this with this knife, the tactile turn. That is Magna Cut and titanium, so it's kind of on a different level, but it's actually a very similar knife. And what was the other one they talked about? Was it the Elementum? I can't remember what the other knife was that the person wanted to compare it to, but I think it may have been these three knives that they were saying that this would compare to. Was it the QSP Penguin? That was what it was. And the individual had bought a higher end version of this with like 20 CV blade steel or something like that. I can't remember what the exact blade steel was, but you know, this lineup right here really speaks to where this knife is making its mark. You've got a, you know, MSRP close to $100 S35 VN version, but like call it a $52 D2 knife that many would say is good all around, but not like particularly inspiring, I think, on the Elementum. But it's a good solid knife. One of the first knives I really worked on, by the way. $300, ranging up to almost $400 on these Tactile Knife Company titanium Magna Cut, which is awesome. Don't get me wrong. This is all made in the US. So this is literally the knife that makes the case that says, hey, let's keep, you know, our people employed and let's not pay for, you know, crap labor in China by buying cheap stuff from China. There's an argument there to, you know, pay your neighbor, not pay your neighbor, but, you know, take care of your neighbor and like do right by someone that's getting paid a living wage as opposed to the insane working conditions of the Chinese factories and stuff. You know, this, of course, you're not making that argument on any of these two. These are all Chinese made, but that one right there is saying, hey, yeah, you're going to pay 6 times more, but A, this is, you know, a level up. It's got titanium and Magna Cut, so maybe this would be $100 if it was comparable, or maybe even more. It'd probably be 150, honestly. If this was titanium and Magna Cut, it'd probably be $150 anyways, maybe 125. So yeah, you're going to pay 2 to 3 times as much money, but it's made in the US. Now, I think overall this knife is a little too small for like the all-aroundedness. This is a better all-around knife, more functional blade. This blade is plenty functional, but it's a little narrow this way. It's a little short. And this handle, albeit good, is a little tiny and a little hot spotty. This thing feels like it was made to be grabbed, and it's very intuitive and where you grab it and stuff. And same thing with the QSP Penguin. It's actually very similar. I'd say this is also a very utilitarian knife like Pyrite. So the Pyrite's just at the top of my list right now. It just does everything that these other knives do and better for the most part. I mean, there's certain areas that these knives will be like have one thing or two things that's a little better than this, but you look at the 10 categories that I rank knives on, and this one's at the very, very top of it. It's really just amazing all-around knife for $50 right now. Not much more I have to say about it. I'll put together a pocket score or a priority score for this one, and we'll see. I think it's going to rank extremely high. I don't know if it's going to break 80. I think it will, though. I think this is going to be the first budget knife to break an 80 out of 100 score. So let's see. I'm going to do it category by category and not be thinking about that, and then we'll see what it comes out to in the end. So thanks for stopping by. I hope this brought some value or you enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, and we will see you on the next one. Take care.